Welcome in to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. It is Friday, August 4th, 2023. Brendan Glasheen, your host, joined today by Charlie DiSturco and Anthony DiBundo. Great to have you all joining us. We are presented by BetMGM. We are here Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays during the season, so we'll be back next week. Coming down the stretch here, 2 months to go in the regular season. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast if you have not done so already. Everybody's in action. 15-game slate. Let's jump in because with these big slates, a lot to get to. Charlie DiSturco, we can go to you first. A best bet for Friday, please. What do you got?
Yeah, I have multiple bets on this game, but I'm going with the Padres money line here at -113. It's Yu Darvish against Bobby Miller, and this is kind of the series of all series for San Diego. They're just a few games out of the wild card, really have a chance to make a statement with a great opening win over the Dodgers here, and Yu Darvish takes the mound, who's been quite of an enigma this season. If you look at his expected metrics, they're right around the mid-3 range, but his actual ERA sits up around 4.5. But his numbers are comparable to last year when he had a low 3 ERA. You know, his expected batting average right around the same. His expected slugging and barrel rate is actually better. His walk rate is just what has increased from last season. But when you look at this matchup here, I love Yu Darvish and how much success I expect from him in positive regression in the coming days. The Dodgers offense, if you look at their lineup, especially against the Athletics, as well as they performed, it hasn't been a pretty lineup. JD Martinez has been battling an injury. We've seen a lot of fluctuation between that, 4 through 9 spot. And I just think the Padres have a better lineup from top to bottom right now. And I'm looking to back Darvish. Bobby Miller, he also a positive regression candidate with a mid-3 expected ERA with a 5-pitch arsenal and a high 90s heater. But I just think that this matchup, when you look at the two pitchers, Yu Darvish slightly better than Bobby Miller, well, a lot better than Bobby Miller, but Bobby Miller does have some promising stuff, which I'll get into later. But in this matchup, the starting pitching edge to San Diego, the offensive edge probably slightly to LA, but I honestly, given the lineup and the current state, might give the edge to San Diego here. And then the bullpen, San Diego's actually 11th in the last 30 days. Apparently, when looking at xFIP, and the Dodgers are down around that 20 to 30 range, they have the better bullpen. Darvish, if he can pitch deep into the game, they don't have to use those middle of the bullpen arms and keep it to Martinez and Hader, and that's when they can close the door. So I like the Padres up to -125 here.
Second to last series between these two teams, as Charlie said. Padres are 4 out of the final wild card in the National League. These teams do meet again September 11th through the 13th, and who knows if that series will mean anything. So this is a big weekend here for the Padres. It was a good bounce-back start also for Darvish, who allowed 4 home runs in the start previous, pitched well against Texas. It's a formidable lineup, of course. So you get in the Padres right now over at BetMGM at -125 with Yu Darvish on the mound. Anthony DiBundo, we will discuss the Cubs and the Cubs system at some point on this podcast, but you are not looking to that as a best bet for today. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that Padres-Dodgers game. I have not bet it. The Padres bullpen is certainly better. Bob Suarez back in the back end makes a huge difference, I think, because it pushes Martinez down the ladder, and they have 2 guys who are really plus in the back end, and that they added Barlow too now. So they have some pieces, and I think their bullpen will be better, and that'll help them hold leads because it's been a big problem for them getting to Hader all season long. But yeah, no play for me. I'm high on both pitchers relative to the market. But I am going to hold my nose and bet an under on the 2 best offenses in the league right now, based on just like the last few weeks. Atlanta's offense has been mashing balls forever. It seems like they score 8 runs a game. The Cubs offense has scored 42 runs in the last 3 games. They just faced AAA pitching for 3 straight days, though, and now they're going to see Max Fried. And this is a classic Wrigley win system. It is not a Cubs 0.5. I am not betting the Cubs 0.5, nor is it fit the system, because there is a 10-mile-an-hour wind blowing in from right center today. And I think that's a big deal for Kyle Hendricks, keeping this ball in the ballpark, because the Braves barrel and hit the ball harder than any lineup in baseball. They are a wagon that I don't want to bet against at the moment. And they also had yesterday off, which is big because Fried could be on a little bit of a pitch count here. He may not get maxed all the way, and that means that the middle relief will get pushed a little more. But given that they've had some rest, I'm less concerned. and they had a comfortable win a couple days ago as well. So they have not really been pushed, and thus their best arms are available to lock this game down. I think, the Cubs dominating Luke Weaver and Ben Lively is nice and good. And, the Cubs are coming, Grim Reaper meme, right behind the Brewers and the Reds for the division now. But they're going to get a little bit of a reality check facing a real pitcher and a very good one in Max Fried today. So given the wind, 8.5, even money under. It may even get to 9. I like 9 even more. But yeah, I would expect the market to move toward the Braves as I say this, based on, some people that have bet it. But I am not playing a side, but do like under in that game. I just think the weather and the market may be overreacting a little bit to this Cubs hot run that they've been on against bad pitching.
Kyle Hendricks' career against the Atlanta Braves, an ERA of 6.81.
Sounds
12
good.
home runs in 8 appearances.
Look, if the wind were
Hold
blowing
your
out today,
nose.
the total would be 10.5. And I think that, I'd feel a lot differently, but with the conditions that the park just plays so much differently.
All right. Very good. So that is a 2:20 start. It's Cubs Friday, everybody, at Wrigley this afternoon, but not the system play. Tabundo's turning to an under 8.5 runs, which over at BetMGM, you are getting plus money, plus 105 under 8.5 runs. Today's Fade the Public segment for this Friday, we landed on the Phillies and the Royals. That is the matchup we're going to focus on today. Jordan Lyles is the starting pitcher of focus. He's pitching for Kansas City. Charlie, your particular angle on this is you're going to find a way to fade Lyles. How?
Yeah, I'm going to take a 777s approach here, fading Jordan Lyles and go with Bryson Stott over 1.5 total bases, plus 140, and to hit a home run, a little sprinkle on that, plus 925. When you look at Jordan Lyles and his profile over the last season, he's given up 10% more fly balls than, in years past, and his expected slugging and barrel rate right around that bottom 15% of all pitchers in baseball. He doesn't get swings and misses. He doesn't get strikeouts. He relies on pitching to contact and inducing soft contact. Well, that's not going to be great here in the Citizens Bank Park where the wind is blowing out. It's very favorable hitting conditions for the opposition. And the guy that I like to target here is Stott. I talked to Dabundo. I was between Stott and Harper here. But when you look at Stott's numbers and his rolling graphs on Fangraphs over the last, 15 plus days, we've seen a quick turnaround and an increase in both WOBA, hard hit rate, and fly balls. Obviously, Stott's not a power hitter by any means, only just 9 home runs this season, but his home run or his fly ball rate rather has gone up nearly 15% over the last handful of games. His hard hit rate also on the up and up. So I feel pretty comfortable here, especially at plus 140, laying the 1.5 total bases against Lyles. Lyles, has decent control and he just doesn't get the swings and misses. Stott, one of those players that doesn't swing and miss despite him chasing a decent amount and has an extremely high expected batting average. So I think this is a multi-hit game for Stott, possibly a home run too. So I'm willing to sprinkle here. He's going to see maybe 4 or 5 plate appearances given the high scoring nature of this game and the fact that he's been batting closer to the top of the lineup with Trey Turner struggling a lot.
So it should have been more clear off the top. So the focus, the reason why we bring up this matchup is not the money line for the Phillies. It's the Phillies run line at minus 1.5 over at the Action Network app. 88% of the bets, 89% of the dollars coming in on Phillies minus 1.5. Aaron Nola, 7 home runs allowed in 5 starts in the month of July, 5 homers in June, 8 in the month of May. So those are some ways you can go about backing the Philadelphia Phillies without actually laying the 1.5 runs. Underdogs for Friday. This one's interesting, Charlie. You're gonna back the Mets somehow. Normally, it's like going against these guys without Scherzer, Verlander, and company, and all the pieces they moved before August 1st.
Exactly why I'm backing them here. The Mets are one of the teams that I think everybody wants to fade right now, given the fact that they just get swept by Kansas City, losers in 4 of their last 5 after getting rid of Robertson, and they're just selling ship. But I think this is a good spot to back David Peterson. That's majority of the reason behind this handicap here, and fade Dean Kramer. You look at this matchup here, I think this number has just gotten completely out of hand, a complete overreaction to the market. Peterson is very comparable to Kramer. You look at his numbers. Peterson has a 6 ERA, but his expected ERA down around 4.8, and his xFIP right around 3.5. So pretty similar to his last year numbers where he was a lot better. His batting average on balls in play is about 390. So when you look at just the luck that he's been getting served, it has not been great. He has been limiting barrels, has above average strikeout stuff. So it's not like he's been struggling to, get past hitters or anything like that. It's just the balls that have been put in play have been hit and to places where the Mets are not. And so the BABIP monster has been getting him. Since he's rejoined the bigs, he went down to the minors when he was struggling. 23 in the third innings, 7 runs, 6 earned, 1 home run, and 23 strikeouts. Obviously, that's come out of the bullpen majority, but we've seen what he can do. We know what he can do. He's, about a league average player, and that's kind of where Dean Kramer is, if not Kramer's a little bit worse. Bottom 11% in expected batting average and expected slugging. Career worst, 278 expected batting average. His expected ERA right around 5.5, below average strikeout stuff too. So this is a guy with plus command that gives up a lot of barrels because he doesn't get swings and misses out of the zone. So then he's forced to attack the zone with his hard stuff. And of course, then vice versa, the other team is able to hit that stuff that's inside the zone well. And Kramer struggles at home, 5.5 ERA at Camden, 3.7 ERA on the road. This is just a matchup here where both teams are in their positive split. But I think Peterson is completely undervalued in the market here. Plus 135 over the first 5 is just a complete overreaction to how bad the Mets have been. I'm not going to get into that whole bullpen thing because I don't even know who the Mets have at this point. They're just throwing out, double A, triple A arms in the back end. But I think Peterson and Kramer are more comparable than people think. So I'm more than happy to lay the plus 135. I'd back it to plus 120.
Very good. Plus 110 right now at BetMGM for the first 5 money line, New York Mets. Putting you on the spot here. How are the Orioles against lefties?
They are. That's their positive split. I believe they're plus 10. They're top 10 in WRC plus against left-handed pitching. That's where like Mountcastle, Santander, they're able to clean up. But they're positive split. But again, so the Mets are, I believe, 11th or around that top 10 rate against right-handed pitching too. So their offense hasn't really changed much. Like Fam's gone and Canna's gone, but for the most part, it's still the same old Mets offense that was plus against righties.
I think Nimmo and Marte are back today too, right?
Yeah, I believe Nimmo is.
The lineup yesterday was not a major league lineup, but today it looks like it will be.
Right.
So that's good. They started essentially 5 minor leaguers, and 4 minor leaguers, 2 prospects, and 3 everyday major leaguers. And it was ugly against the Royals.
Yeah,
I'd like to add
they'll have Nimmo and Marte and Alvarez back today, so they'll have 7 major league hitters today and 2 prospects.
I'd like to add, I really like a BABIP monster. That's good. It's a creative way of explaining it. I like that. DeBundo, underdog for today, please. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with the Detroit Tigers, plus 120 at home against the Tampa Bay Rays. Reese Olson's a pitcher that I'm just going to continue to bet on start to start and bet on his stuff and bet on his ability because he's had a real home run issue. He's allowed 1.45 home runs per 9 thus far, and it's really derailed his start to his major league career. But if you look at his numbers in the upper minors, he didn't really have a home run problem. Most of the projection systems have him closer to about 1.1, 1.2 home runs per 9, which doesn't sound like a huge difference, but it does add up. He's also had some really poorly timed home runs, like giving up a couple 2 or 3 run shots in bad situations, but he's getting almost a strikeout per inning. The stuff plus numbers really pop on both of his breaking balls. His fastball is not great, but it's good enough. The command on it definitely needs some work before he becomes like a really solid pitcher. But the rest of season projections on Reese Olson are right around a 4.2, 4.3 ERA. And I think that's what he can be. And I think that he's being underpriced as a result of that at home against Tampa, who is using a bullpen game. Zach Littell's going to open. They're really piecing it together. They did have yesterday off, so that does help in terms of trying to piece together innings and not be too worn down. But Detroit here, plus 120 with the respectable starter that I think is just continually undervalued. Going to keep betting him.
Yep, plus 125 on the Tigers at BetMGM. And Charlie, you've been, just to kind of wrap this thought on the bullpen, you've been down on this Rays bullpen for most of the year, right?
Yeah, no, they've graded out in the bottom 10 in most metrics. I mean, obviously that's come without Fairbanks, who is now back in the back end of that bullpen. So who knows? But yeah, I've been down on this bullpen over the last, month. They haven't been a team that scares me, like usual.
Yeah, they don't have the same kind of strikeout stuff they normally do, but they have been okay. They got a few guys who are like funky, who kind of are tough to hit, but even though they don't necessarily get a ton of strikeouts, so they kind of
Yeah,
worked it up, but it's not as good as the bullpens of past.
especially when
Sure.
Fairbanks was on the IL.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, a
Right
couple
now,
more.
season long xFIP, they're still in the bottom 10.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple more from each of the guys. Charlie's got 777s coming today, this afternoon, early afternoon, should be up in the app, actionnetwork.com. And Charlie, why don't you start with your other Padres Dodgers angle that you teased off the top? You're on the under 8.5 runs for this matchup coming up. Darvish and Miller, the pitching matchup.
Yeah. So, I mean, mostly you heard about my Yu Darvish love. The other reason why I like the under as well is because I think Bobby Miller is pretty underrated altogether. He's one of the top prospects, and the Dodgers were not going to give him up at the deadline no matter what. You look at his numbers, a 233 expected batting average, only a 7% barrel rate. He's got above average strikeouts and command, and that's what you need in a high 90s mile an hour fastball pitcher. Bobby Miller, over the last 30 days, if you do it by 20 innings pitched as the minimum, he has 126 stuff plus, and that is better than Glasnow and Strider over that span. Darvish is not too far down there. He's 11th with 112 stuff plus. But these are two pitchers that have incredible stuff, that are in rhythm, in form right now. I just think the Padres have the slight bullpen edge and the slight starting pitching edge altogether. So that's why I'm taking their money line, but I also like the under 8.5 here. And then just real quick, the others, Graham Ashcraft, first 5 Reds money line. I got -150. I believe it's like -158 right now. I'm okay with that, but that's kind of where I'd stop, around that 160-ish mark. It's Corbin against Ashcraft. Another guy, Ashcraft, over the last 30 days has 129 stuff plus and a sub-2 ERA in July. He's not giving up that many barrels. His home runs have gone down significantly since his return from injury, and he's got a quality start in 5 of his 7 games since his return from the injured list. I mean, the Action Network's been high on this guy all season, this year and last year. Obviously, it never came until recently, but I think he projects as a mid-4s, maybe a little bit high 4s type pitcher. His ground ball percentage is down a little bit this season, but near 50%. And then Corbin, he has a 5 ERA, but his expected ERA is still about a run and a half higher. His expected slugging is around 517, which is just about the same as last year. And he's got a career worst 315 expected batting average. So despite him having an ERA that's better and some people thinking that he's been a lot better, he really has not. He's got a near 6 ERA in July. That's the type of pitcher that I think we should expect from here on out. His strikeout rate has decreased as his velocity continues to go down. So if he's not getting swings and misses and chases out of the zone on his off speed, well, he's not very good. So I think the Reds have the edge here over the first 5. Don't want to get into that bullpen, as we've seen what has happened with Chicago. And the last one, I know me and Dubundo are going to butt heads here, but I like the Mariners over the first 5. I think Luis Castillo is just a slightly better pitcher than Reed Detmers. He showed up on his walk rate, has elite swing and miss stuff. His biggest issue is barrels, but I'm not so sure that the Angels will take advantage of that. Reed Detmers, he's really struggled in July, a 6.12 ERA. His strikeout rate has increased a lot this year, but he remains below average in chase rate, so he's not getting swings and misses out of the zone. And he's nearing his innings limit, or not innings limit, but like where he pitched last season. He pitched in the 120, 130 range. He's nearing that right now, so we could see some fatigue from him. He's in the bottom 30% of all pitchers in average exit velo, hard hit rate. So a little bit more control issues than Luis Castillo. So I like the Mariners here over the first 5. Castillo has a sub 185 expected batting average on his 2 biggest pitches, fastball, slider, which he does 65% of the time. So I think he'll stick to that. He'll be able to get through the Angels lineup that I'm not all that scared by. And I think the Mariners will get it done. They're 5th in WRC plus over the last 14 days.
Mariners with a nice come from behind win late last night to stick it to the Angels for buying, which I'm a fan of. But Dubundo, it's a good segue because you do like the Angels on the full game. And Luis Castillo is a name. And Zorrillo's brought him up plenty as a guy to fade. He's pitched better the last couple starts, to crediting Charlie's stats that he brought up there on Castillo and how he's pitched. But why are you backing Detmers? And of course, you're betting the whole game. You're staying away from the first 5.
Yeah, I just think the Angels lineup projects a lot better than the Mariners right now. I know the Mariners have shown some signs of life. Cade Marlowe hitting the grand slam last night is actually, I think I made a joke about him on the show last week, but 86 WRC plus in AAA, got called up because Kelnick got hurt. I just think that this Mariners lineup continues to be pretty overrated, and Detmer's stuff plays up against them too. They are a very patient offense, so if he really doesn't have command, it could be a problem. But yes, I agree. Actually, I think Castillo is slightly better than Detmers for sure. But I think the rest of the advantage with the offense and being at home is enough for the Angels at even money for me to bet them. So I'm going to ride with the Halos. Estevez getting blown up, not great, but the Angels did add some bullpen depth here. So it's not just Carlos Estevez now that they can kind of weather that storm a little bit easier. Mariners also used a lot of their bullpen last night too. So I am going with the Halos at home. On the other note, the Cleveland just moved out of range. I was looking at them, kind of wondering why that price was a little short. I know the White Sox project better against lefties, but they did lose Jake Berger. They traded away their entire bullpen. I don't know how much depth they're going to really get from Clevenger. So if that number comes back down to 150, 155, 160, I still would play Cleveland. Although I imagine that's going to move out of range now. So that's about it for me today. But I am now considering, the more I think about it, Graham Ashcraft strikeouts. I want to dig more into it once we get off the show here. But I know the Nats don't strike out. I know Ashcraft has not had a lot of strikeouts, and it's not really been his thing. But there's a reason that I like to use stuff and trust it, and it's because eventually, guys may go through bad stretches, and Ashcraft certainly did. He had a stretch with some of the worst numbers you'll ever see for a major league pitcher. But he's figured out some of the platoon issues. And he's, sorted through it and had some better batted ball luck in the last couple months and really improved. So, the strikeouts I think will come for him. He does have the stuff to generate the whiffs. So maybe the Nationals, even though they don't strike out much, you might get a really low number. I'm seeing over 4.5 plus 130. It's really tempting for me. Stay tuned to the Action Network app to see if I actually get around to bet it. I got to run some numbers on that.
Okay. Yep, that's where it's at. BetMGM's got it at plus 125. Ashcraft, 17 strikeouts and 29 in the third in 5 starts in the month of July.
Yeah, he doesn't really get a lot of strikeouts, but
he doesn't. No,
the swinging strike rate's not terrible. So, there could be some strikeouts coming potentially for him.
All right. Charlie, you want to wait on the 777s? You want to give that out now here? Or you want to hold off?
I can give out one just real briefly. I'm not going to give much of an explanation to it. I am going to take Yordan Alvarez as the anchor to hit a home run tonight against Luis Severino. I mean, when the Yankees are talking about Rizzo having a concussion for 3 months and then Severino not being able to feel a finger, that's gives
He's
me
been bad, huh?
Yeah,
explains a lot.
Yes. So I mean, and Yordan is, if you look at his numbers, he's hitting the ball hard. So as long as he doesn't walk 4 times, I like his chances at parking one in the short porch and right. But stay tuned for the last one. I believe I'm heading toward the Reds Nationals game and fading Corbin as the last leg of the 777s.
It's going to be Ellie De La Cruz.
No, it may or may not be Matt McClain again.
All right, fellas, good stuff. We found a way to get through this one. Way to finish strong here on a Friday. Charlie DeSturco, Anthony DeBundo, as DeBundo said, stay tuned to the Action Network app. These guys, they'll add something. they always, something's always added. They always say if. I'm like, that will happen. They'll add to the Action app, so stay tuned to that and stay on tap with that as the afternoon progresses. Brendan Glasheen, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We return on Monday. Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Thanks to David Payne, our audio director, audio producer. Audio director is Matt Mitchell, so I don't want to get titles wrong. But thanks to David today. He's really got his work cut out for him. You all have a great weekend. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you next week.